Hello, I'm Andy Agathangelo, the founder of the Transparency Task Force. The Transparency Task Force is an international community of individuals in and connected to the financial services sector. We are a certified social enterprise with a very, very clear mission statement. Our mission is to promote ongoing reform of the financial sector with a view to helping ensure that the sector serves society properly. We have a vision, which is that over the years, we will be building a highly respected international institution that is dedicated to ensuring that consumers are treated fairly by the financial industry. Well, we have many concerns about the way the financial sector operates currently. In very general terms, we want it to be more transparent, more truthful, more trustworthy. And we really do believe that our cause is both noble and necessary. We have created a framework for finance reform, and the framework for finance reform is built around what we call the 12 finance development goals, a bit like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, but tuned in specifically to the reforms that are necessary within the financial industry. Those finance development goals relate to issues such as culture and transparency and incentives, etc. But perhaps one of the most important is leadership. We say that leadership is particularly important because it seems obvious to us and everybody else that good leadership really can make a huge difference to the way that the finance industry operates. In particular, the leaders of organizations can, of course, make a significant difference to the conduct and the attitude and the values and the culture within their own organizations. So to try to capture this idea that good leadership can really make a positive difference, we have embarked on a series of interviews of individuals around the world that have already developed very hard-earned reputations for being good, honest, ethically minded leaders of successful financial services organizations. And that's what we're doing today. We're going to be interviewing another individual who has a tremendous track record and reputation for leading in an ethical, progressive, and enlightened manner. The interview is going to be conducted by Debbie Henderson, who is the founder and leader of the Centre for Inspired Leadership. And Debbie has been a wonderfully supportive ambassador for the Transparency Task Force and really is especially gifted in relation to this particular activity of talking to financial services leaders around the world. There can be no doubt that the topics we are talking about are very, very important. And one of the reasons that conduct in financial services is so important is because there is a mountain of evidence showing that the financial industry around the world is not trusted nearly as much as we would like it to be. And that's important because for the finance industry to operate successfully, it really does need to be trusted. It really does need to operate in a trustworthy manner. So I'm going to be passing over to Debbie in just a moment. We do, of course, hope that you find this conversation you're about to hear to be interesting and engaging and thought-provoking. And ultimately, we do hope that it might in some way add a little bit of positivity to the conduct of those who happen to be watching this session. Thank you very much. Debbie Henderson, over to you. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Andy. And let me just say, as an ambassador, having been invited to be an ambassador for Transparency Task Force is an absolute delight and honor. And in particular, to say huge congratulations to you for all your efforts around the world. You're extraordinary what you managed to achieve in a day, let alone in the 5 years or 6 years since you founded TTF. And bravo, really, my hat off to you tremendously.
Thank you, Debbie.
I'm delighted today to be joined. Well, first, let me give you a little bit of background on myself, but I'm delighted today to be joined by Upendra Poudyal, who is a more than three decade career banker, having reached CEO of NMB Bank in Nepal and is now chairman of Nabil Bank in Nepal. And I will give a little bit more detail of the introduction on Upendra. Thank you, Upendra, for being here in a moment. My own background, as Andy alluded to, is I am in the leadership and culture space as a consultant coach, and my original career was investment banking itself for about 16 years in New York and in London, with mainly with Morgan Stanley. And it was in my own discoveries within the sector and observing what was happening as we moved into the 90s that I began to have a little bit of a question for my own career and thought, maybe I really want to study leadership and culture and how that could be of support to creating a healthy finance sector. So that's what I've been doing for the last 22 years. I'm delighted today, as I've mentioned, to speak with and be able to interview Upendra Poudyal. We've had a chance to spend a little bit of time together to learn about your own personal background, which we think is quite relevant actually to who you are as a leader and how you worked your way up from extraordinary roots in rural Nepal, and if I'm not mistaken, indicated that you actually went to school for the first time in an actual school rather than being educated by your grandparents in grade 6. And then from there, got your MBA and went into the finance arena in the hotel business first, and then got into banking through Grindlays, Standard Chartered in Grindlays, and worked your way up. And today, sitting as chair of Nabil Bank, which is the first joint venture bank in the country, and to have reached the level of profitability that it holds. And when you were CEO of NMB, with just under 1,000 employees, if I'm not mistaken, you also were able to join the Global Alliance for Banking and Values, and are still the Asia Pacific representative, if I'm not mistaken, for the GABV. It is a great pleasure to be able to speak with you, Upendra. And I'd be curious, as we start out, first of all, if there's anything else you would like to add to my introduction. Maybe tell us about any other board positions. I think you're involved with the Art of Living, and anything else you would like to share about the introduction that I've given.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. It is really a pleasure for me to be talking to you today. Yeah, there's not much to add, but one thing I just would want to highlight that banking was probably not what I thought when I actually graduated from the school, it's class 10. At that time, in fact, I had a strong desire to become a doctor. For that purpose, I tried to get into that line, but I didn't get a chance that time. I must confess that I was not a very kind of strong in academics, maybe because of that, because I started my formal education at grade 6. It took some time for me to catch up my academics. So I didn't get there, but incidentally, I ended up getting into the management stream, and then I continued with it. After that, yes, I joined hotel and then worked there for 6 years, and then worked for Nepal Grindlays, a joint venture bank, with a joint venture with Grindlays International, and then with one of the local government-owned banks. So from there on, yeah, it's been, I think it's been throughout, I got an opportunity to work in a professional environment, whether it be in the hotel or in the bank, where I think the work culture was there, and then all people would always look upon integrity as one of the major ingredients of the work culture. So that way, in a country like Nepal, I must say that I've been very fortunate enough. And in the one thing I would want to sort of mention here is that yes, in between, while I was working in the hotel, in between I tried in one of the local banks that time. That time we did not have other private sector banks in the country. So I tried to get in there. And I worked there for around 3 months, and I found that the work culture, I didn't find a very good work culture, working environment. People would definitely go there for just spending time. I just found, majority of people had a mood to just spend their time and do not dedicate fully to what they are supposed to do. There I just thought, that way I would spoil myself, uh, because I wanted a working culture. I wanted to really work. So from there, just I went back to the hotel again, and then after that, after a couple of years, there was an opening for Nepal Greenleys, and then I got in there, and from there. I joined. Basically, I was even when I was in Greenlays, I was transferred to one of the branches outside Kathmandu, wherein I got a very good exposure, particularly in terms of servicing the SME segments, and even I also got exposed to microfinance institutions as well. Because that time we had a regional level development bank operating in that area. I had an opportunity to travel with the then deputy governor, who used to be the chairman of that development bank. I went to the village and just look into had really witnessed that time. I got a chance to really witness the kind of differences, even small money, like that time it was back in 1993, 94, an amount of say $15 or $20 would really make a difference in the lives of the people. That really sort of impressed me. I was fascinated to see that kind of impacts the financing can make to the society, to an individual. So that was, I think, really sort of, that continues to be one of the inspiration for me to get to the, people at the bottom of the pyramid. And again, while I was a child and spent time with my grandparents, my grandfather was a learned person. Many of the people, they used to come to him for study, and that study included even the Vedas, the great Hindu shastras, so that way, like doing good and being ethical was something that was there from the very beginning, I would say. And then yes, after that, after serving there in Viratnagar for 3 years, I was transferred back to Kathmandu, and I looked after various corporate portfolios. It was a very big portfolio. And then in the meantime, the kind of contribution I probably made in Viratnagar, there were a few of the entrepreneurs from Viratnagar who founded one of the finance company. They sort of offered me to join that finance company. And then after a few days of consideration, I just thought of joining that organization, very small organization. But in the meantime, the country came up with a new act which allowed the smaller finance company also to get upgraded as a um, as a commercial bank. The increase in capital and other requirements were also there. Yes, so with we had a persistent kind of efforts to upgrade our institution. It took more than 2 years for us to upgrade it as a commercial bank that time. That gave me a lot of energy there. And Debbie, you said you are an investment banker, and that, in fact, that organization was a finance company, but did bit of investment banking function as well. And then actually, after I moved into that organization, we focused on investment banking part of it, mainly initial public offerings, right issues, and all those kind of things. So we really became number one there, though it was a finance company. But after that, yes, after upgradation as a commercial bank, our league actually changed, and we became much more bigger. We planned it well, and in the meantime, and after a few years of upgradation, then we thought, we should become a little big, and then also, expand our footprints in other parts of the country. And then we we sort of decided to merge. And then, we decided to merge a few other local development banks and finance companies, and again, the national level development bank. So that way, we in that process, we merged Clean Energy Development Bank as well, and that was a member of Global Alliance for Banking on Values. And so, and then, yes, we became part of Global Alliance, and we had a lot of deliberation there whether we should continue. Then, yes, we continued as a member of Global Alliance. And then in 2016, I attended Global Alliance annual meeting in Amsterdam. I was very much fascinated with it. And then I thought, that's something which would definitely bring about changes in the whole concept of banking, as well as the lives of the people in the bottom of the pyramid, as well as contribute to the economic, social, and environmental development in any country where these banks are operating. So that way, I also volunteered that time to hold next meeting in Kathmandu, basically because I had decided to take a retirement myself by that time. So then I thought, bringing in that concept in country like Nepal would be useful for the country itself. And that time we sort of managed to have that annual meeting in Nepal, inaugurated by the Prime Minister himself, and we had participation of other top government officials, as well as the governor of the central bank. It was quite an affair. And then that time I invited other chairmen of other banks as well. So that they would understand this concept, a whole entirely different concept of banking in the country. It's because, even today it is there that the banking is more into the banking is more into growing aggressively and after profit, and if you go by the principles of value-based banking, it is entirely different from that. Yes, we do need to grow. We do need to have a good profit, but without compromising on social aspect, real economy aspect, and even environment. So that's something that I wanted to make a topic of discussion in the country. So in a way, we succeeded in it. So these are the probably these are the gaps I just thought of filling you in. You know.
Thank you so much. What I'm really picking up from this, dear Upendra, if I might suggest, is that if your original dream was to become a doctor, that takes care of the individual health for an individual, and maybe if you grow up in the population. But actually, having moved into banking, you're taking care of the health of the economy by helping to instigate an understanding of how money can become the lifeblood for those, as you say, at the bottom of the pile, to help boost the economy overall when we're living and leading from a clear sense of purpose. And when the purpose is overriding that the role of the finance sector is to support the economy and the economy to support the people, ultimately you're leading from purpose. And if you're doing a really good job at that, money will flow, your profitability will flow from that. And so I'm just commending you, as I sense, about the medical side on the one hand, and actually you ending up becoming an economic doctor internally within the country, is as I hear you saying this.
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
Yeah, thank you for this observation. In a way, yes, I'm happy that, happy that, yes, I worked as a doctor for the financial, for the economy itself. I still remember, like, it is probably back in 1988 or 89. We sort of 300,000 rupees loan we lent to one of two of the boys there. I still remember that is a glaring example for me, and bit of a satisfaction as well, that we lent 300,000 rupees for their carpet spinning, the wool spinning unit, very small unit. We lent 300,000 rupees. That means it's less than $3,000. And then those people today are in a position to borrow more than 1 billion rupees in from the banking system. So that's that is something that there are numerous other people whom I can just count and say, okay, these people were there and now they are here, and that's the kind of contribution banking system has made in the economy. So it gives a lot of satisfaction. Like yes, you are right in the sense that, like, okay, if as a teacher, if the boy or girl, he or she teaches, that person becomes the big person or becomes a prime minister kind of stature, then that gives a lot of satisfaction to that teacher. And the same way, as a banker, I have got that kind of satisfaction on people moving up the ladder in terms of their prosperity and their contribution. In a way, yes, if there are industries and there are other type of customers who are availing of banking facility, doing business, they are contributing to the economy in a way or another, and that's the kind of satisfaction we bankers get. I'm sure you must be feeling that way, Devi.
Well, yes, I suppose I like being a doctor to culture of organizations. That's true, and seeing how people can thrive through this. But let's. What I'd love to do is have a little summary point hanging there. If we think about this interview, to invite you to be sharing much of the wisdom that you have developed over time, and your own personal experiences and stories, anecdotes of how you might have been tested as you were building the health of Nepal and the economy through banking. And so one lesson I'm picking up from what you've just shared that seems really key, and then I'd love to go and ask your sense about the big why that we have, other whys as to the dilemma with trust in the sector that Andy spoke to. But one big answer that I'm getting already from that question that you've given us is how important it is to have our focus on contribution. What's our purpose? And how are we contributing to others and to society through the work we do? When that is key and center for a human being, for a banker, or for within the sector, and there's a belief that with that focus, money will flow and the bottom line will take care of itself because you're doing the right thing. I'm curious, did you ever find an instance where that was not the case, where focusing on purpose did not give a good bottom line? Did you ever find that? I'm curious, just that's one question, and then I'll go back to the why of trust.
Yeah, there were, if I may recall, back in 2009 or 10, that time, many of the new banks started coming in the country. And again, there was a real flow of funds by several banks, by small size bank or big size bank, development bank, finance companies, and so much of activities happening in the finance sector. And then what we find is that some of the institutions, they are actually into financing the real estate businesses and not really into the real sector. We were really not into it. The bank's balance sheet would really swell like anything. Okay. And then we were also sort of pressurized to keep pace with other banks. Other banks were surpassing, their volume was ticking up. Okay. That time we are not part of GAVB, and though I did not really sort of understand the spirit, probably not understand the spirit of it, but we sort of, our bank, we refrained from financing all those real estate projects, which was basically for the speculation purpose, and again, the stock market was also going up because the banks were actually really financing stock markets, and it was beyond the sustainable level. And that's where we actually refrained from. And yes, we could have landed up in a couple of small kind of exposures wherein we had a problem, but we got out of it. In the flow, sometimes even if you sort of you are clear that you don't want to do it, at times it gets through. In banking, how it is. It comes from bottom and then up, and then though you have a very good system, at times you get a couple of those kind of things, but we got out of it. But that time, yes, I still remember the banking system got into an issue of liquidity problems, and then because of overlending, and the banks would be highly leveraged. So okay, they have a capital adequacy ratio, they have a liquidity ratio to be maintained, But with the greed of profit, people just got into those kind of businesses. Yes, that's something I still remember. We got out of it very well, and even the entire banking system, they got out of it because the central bank also came up with the measures to measures to control these things. So that way, I think it was very well managed, but still, a few of the damages were done to few of the industry, few of the banks, particularly the smaller size institutions.
Well, okay, so it's very interesting you bring this up, because I think as we're seeking to draw lessons out of your stories, and you're a beautiful storyteller for us, we've got the incredible, the sort of sense of inner purpose. How am I making a difference to the economy or to the bottom line, or for those who might be left behind otherwise? And yet we can't so overdo that for the sake of either our own heart or purpose, or for competition because somebody else is getting there before us. And we can lose track of our own governance and our own financial health. So we need to put on our own oxygen mask first before we can take care of others.
Yes.
And at the same time, know that taking care of others is our key source of where we're focused. That's what I'm picking up, is that you really feel in your DNA that serving society is so important and we need to have good governance. What I'm also picking up is the timing of when you said these liquidity problems happened, 2009, 2010, right after the global financial crash, when so many people were focusing on competition and how big can we get, and losing track of the safety and security that was needed to take care of our own house first, and make sure that in the finance sector, because it's so contagious, this sector, one bank goes down, the ripple effect. So we need to make sure we've got good governance as well as purpose, is what I'm picking up. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yes, and Debbie, one thing I just wanted to add here is like, as a CEO, I think that's the kind of experience I got that time is, as a CEO, you should have got to say no even to your board. Okay, like okay, as I said that time, because the industry was just moving in that direction, and we were a little, in terms of performance, we were lagging behind performance in terms of performance, I mean the volume. We were volume and profit were lagging behind. But I know, because banking is not a kind of short-term business; it's a long-term business. And then, yes, I had to say no to our leadership as well. Like at the board, I said, this is not the way we should run the business. And I think as a CEO, we should have guts to sort of say no to those kind of pressures, and you should be in a position to convince your board. Yes, I managed to convince my board that this is not the way we should be doing business as others are doing. Then that time you could, there could be your position could be at stake, but you should be prepared to forego that stake. Like you could lose the job. Like at times, if you are not following the direction of your board, and you compromise on the health of your business, then you are there to be blamed. Yeah, and yes, that risk is there, but you have to just have guts to forego that kind of, okay, in the worst case, what will happen? You'll have to leave, and that will, as a CEO of the organization, I think you should be prepared for that kind of situation always.
Well, I quite get it. This becomes the core character that we're talking about, is how do you discern in the moment what's right and what's wrong, or or what's ethical or what's not ethical, and for you, the CEO, to be able to discern where's the future lay of the land with regards to the finance sector or the economy, and how is it impacting our organization, and then be able to speak up to your board. It's a big pressure role. It's a huge pressure role when we think about it. If you take even some of these elements that we've shared and any others that you can reflect on, could you say, if we just start with the big picture question, why have we got trust issues in the finance sector today? The way that Andy alluded to it. What do you see as the core reasons that there are trust issues in the sector today?
Yeah, there is no doubt, Devi, that trust is very crucial in banking, and an inculcation of trust should be there in the business strategy as well. But that is something which is really lacking. We don't. Yes, we discuss about the businesses. We discussed about our strategy and all, but how we enhance the trust in the system is something I'm sure is lacking in the strategy document of many of the institutions. Just a couple of weeks back, we were discussing on the strategy paper of the bank I chaired. And it was coming from the management side, and then I clearly told them that, okay, yes, you should also incorporate that trust and confidence in your strategy document. That's something which is really missing. Yeah. When we talk of trust and confidence in the banking system, it's I think there are three parameters we should discuss about. That is competency, integrity, and solvency. If I go by, I can always refer to the case in Nepal. If you may understand my limitation, I can just like I've been in banking in Nepal, but yes, I do have some exposure outside as well. But basically, I can probably relate to very well in the cases in Nepal. Like, okay. Yes, mid-80s, till mid-80s, we just had government-owned banks, and they were not, really well managed. If you look at, you'll be surprised to sort of hear that the bank's balance sheet was not audited for several years. And then at the end of the day, basically what transpired is they were actually, though the interest was not earned, they were actually showing unearned interest as income and showing profit, and then that kind of things, got surfaced, and then that really eroded the confidence in the banking system that time. Since they were government-owned banks, but people had a bit of trust in it. People didn't have a choice, and people would always sort of had a comfort that the government will bail it out. So because of that, okay, that issue was not there. But it's still yes, as far as trust and confidence is concerned, that eroded bit of a trust and confidence. And after that, what happened is JV banks started coming in, and then at some point in time, other private sector banks also started coming. Particularly, I would refer to JV banks. So they really brought about the culture of bank being strong to become strong. A very good risk culture, to be transparent, to be to become to disclose whatever is happening. So that brought about the culture of transparency and disclosure in the country. As far as financial sector is concerned, and that enhanced. Initially, yes, they were bank promoted by a bank elsewhere, and people probably didn't have trust. I still remember when I was with the NG Greenlace, opening a few of the accounts in the beginning was really getting, was very difficult. I was really struggling. I was, from the local part, I was the only person in credit and marketing, whether it be deposit marketing or risk asset side. I really struggled, this trying to convince the people that yes, it's a good bank. You have to bank with us. But still, they had craze for the government-owned banks. Though government-owned banks didn't have much of a disclosure, didn't have a disclosure or transparency issues. But yes, over a period of time, yes, people got to know of it. We brought about the service culture, and all. Then that way, I think we managed to enhance the trust. So, and there, I think the competence issue was there with the local banks. And even now, when it comes to competence, like, after other, private sector banks also started coming into the country, the way, quality of people, the skill of the people developed in the country, the way that there was a growth in the financial sector, the existing skill level of the people was not actually adequate. We could not keep pace with that, and then still competency issue is still there. But with the consolidation happening, during the past few years, it has really improved. But still, I would say banking sector is still one of the most organized sector in the country. And when it comes to integrity, yes, there are two issues: personal integrity and the organization's integrity. The bank should not be, as Andy also said, that as a bank, you should not be differentiating your customers. You should not have you should treat your customers fairly. And this issue still prevails, I would say, still prevails. But yes, the people who cannot negotiate, who cannot smaller size people, like the smaller customers, they cannot go to the bank and then negotiate for a better rates. And the bigger people, they can go to the bank and they can negotiate a better rate. So that kind of differences are still there. That's something, that we have to manage. But the central bank is taking steps to sort of, bridge that gap. I must appreciate the efforts of the central bank in this country, whether it be, the financial sector reform brought about to save those, to bail out the government-owned banks who really had a problem that time. They are also in track. But when it comes to they are coming into the track is basically because of that financial sector reform, wherein we had the people from outside who manage the bank, but the top level, a couple of people, they came from outside, but they had local people who actually graduated from these joint venture banks. And that way is, I really take a pride that the bankers from our kind of generation, they managed to turn around the local banks as well. So now they are really competing, giving a very good competition to the joint venture banks and other private sector banks, and they are really performing well. And now their balance sheet is published on an annual basis. That goes to competence as well as integrity of the banking system. So I can still when it comes to solvency, we also discussed that the banking system here compromise on capital adequacy and liquidity situation for profit and volume. So that's despite of the central bank regulating it and supervising the system very effectively. still that was happening, and we at times where the banking system got into that trap of greed for profit. So as like that has at times eroded the trust of the people in the banking system, because at some point in time what has happened, and that relates to governance as well, is we have had a situation of the bank promoters, bank owners, misusing the bank's funds. At times, there was one institution which from where that was actually in the process of upgrading its position from a small company, small finance company, to a bigger commercial bank, and they were required to increase. It's a typical case, Devi. It will be very interesting for you that they were required to increase their capital manifold. And that time, what the owners did is they managed to directly, indirectly, they managed to borrow from the same bank and then subscribe to their right issues.
Ah.
Can you imagine this situation? That they borrowed from their own bank. They managed to borrow from their own bank and subscribe to their right issues, and that event itself made that institution discontinuing their operations. That was found by the regulators when they went for the inspection, and then that, in fact, is at the. I must appreciate the kind of patience of the people, as well as the honesty in general honesty of the people in this country. That the depositors, they didn't lose money somehow. They managed, but at the end of the day, that institution ceased to operate. So, we have had a couple of those cases, and that has really eroded trust of the bank, trust of the people in the banking system. What I feel is that we have not been able to talk about what we contributed. Like, as I said, like 300,000 rupees or 1,500 rupees or 3,000 rupees can make a miracle to the customer. They can, they can really move up like anything. And those kind of, we should be in a position to sort of bring about those successes of the bank, those kind of contributions of the bank in public, and then make it a matter of discussion. We have not been able to do that. The other issue I find, particularly in a country like Nepal, is okay. Banks are very transparent and disclose, and they have to disclose whatever is their performance. Okay, so nothing is hidden, and everything comes out. But if you look at the other sectors of the economy, they are not transparent, and there is no disclosure there, and then that at times becomes though you are doing the right thing, disclosure and transparency, but at times that becomes that goes against you in terms of trust. Like, okay, these banks are making billions of rupees of profit, and then they are ripping off the customers. That kind of thinking people tend to have here. So I think and then again, yes, now though the banking system is one of the best regulated sector in the country, we still have a trust issue there because of all of these historical factors, and many of these, as I said, many of these smaller banks who had a problem, they sort of the central bank encouraged the bigger size institution to acquire and merge those institutions, and that has really in a way solved the problem. So I think reform of the public sector bank in the country, and those, if you showed the management of those institutions has really now at this point in time, I would say, has enhanced the reputation and trust level of the public in the banking system. But but you need to treat customers fairly. That fairness is still lacking. And again, I must emphasize that banks are still after profit and volume, and that has also impacted on the trust level of the banking system, and we have not been able to sort of give a clear message about the contribution the banking system has made in the society. And because of that reason, as in the bank I'm chairman in now Naval Bank, we have just set up a sustainable banking department, and that from there we want to address the climate change, environment, and then again we want to get to the bottom of the pyramid. We want to reach the bottom people at the bottom of the pyramid, and then show that the banks can really make an impact in the society, community, and individuals. So these kind of initiatives would definitely help bank, gain trust in the society. And again, I think the CSR activities which banks do would also help, but you have to do a meaningful kind of a CSR activities. You have to choose. You have to really choose. And now I think it's an opportunity for us to, if we act properly in addressing the problems emanating from this Corona and COVID, I think this is really an opportunity for the banking system to, regain its trust and confidence in the society.
Wow. So let me just see what I think I've heard you say, which is really fascinating. We started out with the question of why might there be issues of trust, and your three comments were to build trust in an organization, we need to look at solvency, competency, and integrity. But what I picked up from your story is not just one individual institution at a time, it is the integrity of the whole finance sector. And I'm picking up, it's the integrity of the finance sector in its role and relationship with other industries, with the government, with central banks. And if any one area is a little bit off on the integrity piece, the risk is that who's leading whom? I think I was getting a little bit of this, and what you're now saying that seems key is when we're looking for the sector to be of service to society and build back trust with society, how could the sector be of support, not just for the no one left behind, but also for the fullness of the environment, the UN sustainability goals when it comes to climate and the environment and reconnecting in that area. And that if the finance sector can see its role in supporting society during and post-COVID lockdown, it will be huge to generating trust elements for society when the need is there. So there's something that then comes back to your sense of purpose. What's the role of the finance sector overall? And when we can hold that sense of purpose and be of service to society, then it feels as if it fuels the trust elements. I'm curious, Upendra, when as a leader's had this fascinating career so far, and you've been in many ways, as I'm hearing you, the sort of driving edge of helping to create integrity in the banking sector in Nepal. Were there instances in your career where you felt tested, where seemingly there were decisions you were needing to make or calls you were needing to take, no to this or no to that, maybe up or maybe sideways, which became fundamental to who you are and to how you were leading and maybe being perceived by others?
Yes, there are numerous cases there, particularly in terms of going back to, again, trust and confidence. Again, basically, even an individual can make a difference. even an individual can make a difference. And in a country like Nepal, where banking system has a real banking system started just towards 1990s. So there, there were a lot of discussions and a lot of expectations from the people. Yeah, we have had cases of even people trying to sort of bribe you and try to give, try to show some kind of indirect advantage. So that's something, you have to, at the same time, at a time, you have to refrain from it and be an example in the system. But then you have to live with it. Okay, suppose if that has been the culture for many, many years, and then if you want to just change it, I find it takes a bit of time. Even after the joint venture banks came in, and even after all of these private sector banks came in, that level has really gone down. But it's still, the indirectly, getting into the partnership with the customers and all these things prevails. I've had cases, several cases of having to, sort of decline proposals of the customers. Basically, they were offering something to me. Those kind of issues are there. And then it's a professional approach to doing business is something which was lacking. But now I think to a large extent with the with the kind of schooling we people had, particularly after liberalization, I think that has been taken care of. That has been taken care of largely, because at the moment, if you look at the financial institutions in the country, those are majority of them are being managed by the people who graduated from these joint venture banks, or people who actually got mentored by the people who sort of graduated from there. So that is really that is really improving the scenario. So that way, I think what I feel is that the bankers, we should not be succumbed to the profitability in pressures. And at times, what is also happening, I can tell you is even like, okay, the banking system evolved very late in the country, and then that brings in a lot of bank owners, bank promoters, without their having to understand what the spirit of banking is. They get into the boards of the banks, and then what happens is, okay, they don't have much of an idea on how bank runs. Then CEO dominates the entire, dominates the affairs, That way, at times, what happens is, if the CEO wants to take advantage, then, if you have that kind of CEO, and there is no proper oversight from the board, then you can imagine what can happen. We have had that kind of situation as well in this country. But I think I must share with you that the situation has drastically improved, because there are many of the bankers who are really know what they are doing, and they know their limitations. And I still take a pride to say that the banking system is one of the most regulated and organized sector in the country. If the government wants to implement something in the country, they really depend on the banking system. Even today, we don't have a national identity kind of document. Yes, national identity we have got citizenship document, but it's not a kind of digitized national identity document from where you can track people like it happens in that part of the world. You just punch in the national identity number, you get all the information. You don't have that kind of system. and the government is trying to track the people through these through the banking system, you know. So that way, I think banking system is much more organized, and the bank leaders have really played a role in this. But you know, basically, yes, we should learn from the past, the failures of past failures of a few of the banking institutions, and you know, move ahead from there.
And so, as you shared your journey and had to take a stand in several instances, speaking with your chair or saying no to the board or saying no thank you to an envelope or that might be put in your direction, each time you're doing this for you, your own integrity, and you're sharing a message for others, did you find that there were allies, other CEOs that you could turn to who would also help be supporting this new integrity way? Or if we went to Nepal, would we find that you're the father or the grandfather of integrity within the system? I'm just curious. And that's not a statement about Nepal, it's a statement about other leaders who want to take a stand. How can leaders support leaders to take a stand for integrity in a system when the integrity of the system is something we need to all look at? So I'm just curious if you've got thoughts about how you built up allies.
Yes, here we have a bankers association and a central bank. And central bank is really sort of encouraging the banking system to become much more vibrant and maintain its integrity. At times, what has happened is central bank has really played a role, and they have brought about regulations to sort of mitigate those issues. But what I think the way it has happened is, okay, there could be issues with one or two institutions, but we get regulation for all.
Sure.
And then at times we have overdone with the regulation. That is something which we need to be careful about. But in a way, I think it's been sort of, there has been alliance from the Bankers Association as well as the central bank. And again, we sort of, there have been a couple of instances. In fact, I was also the president of the Bankers Association for 2 years, and we have had cases of the liquidity issues. Again, you know, the liquidity issue comes basically because of the business philosophy of the entire banking system. I think these liquidity issues always comes up. Now, today, if you look at it, the liquidity situation has eased out so much that, you know, banks are flush with funds. And a few years back, we had a liquidity problem as well. And that time, what has happened is, okay, because the banks were compromising on their, the liquidity and over lending, then those banks, they would look for additional deposits in the system. And for that, they used to offer higher interest rate. Okay. Then interest rate started going up like anything. If you know, we are saying as we are working in a perfect competition market, but at times what happens is, okay, it is like it is going up the roof, and that time the Bankers Association need to take some kind of steps, and we sort of we decided that the interest rate is going up to 13 and a half, and if it is not checked, it could go up to 14, 15. Then if you are raising deposits at 14 or 15%, then what rate you are going to lend? And will that rate be sustainable to the businesses? And then at the end of the day, what will happen is you land up with the quality of the assets. So that way, I think that time we tried to check the deposit at certain level, and then just sort of brought about a consensus that, okay, none of the banks will be offering interest rate beyond certain rate. So that that was taken negatively by the market. At one point in time, that was taken negatively by the market, and okay, even the regulators and even the government. But our intent was not to cartel the system, but our intent was to check the interest rate and interest rate for the borrowers. Okay? So that way, I think we have actually acted that way, and we got out of the situation. We resolved the situation. We have managed that situation, and at times, yes, we have we managed to even convince the regulators as well. So I think yeah, we have had alignment with the regulators. We have had alignment with the even with the customers as well. But at times we have not been able to align ourselves with the owners of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean. Owners of the bank, they just want higher profit, but okay, the banking is not a normal kind of business. But here, I must one issue I want to raise here, even for your thought, that whether the people who are actively in businesses should be the owner of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
I had read news article in one of the papers in India. So, in fact, two of the people who actually applied for the business, top business people who applied for the bank licenses, they went bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
They were denied license by the Reserve Bank of India, but okay, they had applied for it, but later on they went bankrupt. And there is a question from the market, from the media, that if these two business people, these two business groups were allowed banking licenses that time, then would they have misused the bank's funds?
I think.
No.
Yeah.
They may have misused the bank's funds, because when it comes to your survival, then it can happen.
Sure.
So this is something I think, I don't know whether it is a topic of discussion in your part of the world, but here it is.
Yeah.
The central bank has raised this issue, and I think this needs to be deliberated very carefully. But at the end of the day, if they are the owner, they should be representing the board. They should have some say in the institution, because they have to protect their investment. But how do you have a trade-off kind of situation? That's something I think we need to really think about.
I hear you loud and clear, and I think if we've got time, I'd just like to ask one other question, and that is, what benefit you as a CEO have had to be part of the Global Alliance for Banking and Values? What benefit has that given you for the stand you want to take? And
yeah, I think it's if you really want to grow your country in a balanced way, in a sustainable way, this value-based banking is the solution. Because it's a long-term kind of approach to banking. It's not like if you continue to support the real economy, then that is good for everybody. Like it may take some time, but when you continue to sort of support the real economy, when you continue to support the sustainable businesses, including including address of the climate change, addressing the climate change, then it's like that's where the future is. We can't continue to bank the way we are banking now. And I think this 2009, 2010, this global financial crisis has given us a great lesson. And from there, I think the banking philosophy has definitely started changing. In European countries, I think I do find a major change in the banking philosophy there. At least European countries, I can understand, but that changes has not had much of an impact in this part of the world or in other part of the world as well. So I think we should learn from those experiences, and if we continue the way if we sort of change the way we do our banking business, I think that is going to change the whole world to a happier place. Because if you look at Global Alliance, it says you should you should look into the profit. Yes, that's a reasonable profit, but we should also consider environment. We should also consider the community. We should also consider the economy, wherein you contribute to real sector. So, and then it also promotes, it also says the bank should be run on a long-term basis, not a short-term approach. You should consider the well-being of the customer. You should treat the customer fairly. And then you should be close with the customer. You should understand their business, understand their risk, and support them. And then you should also run in a bank in order that the bank remains resilient to outside disruptions. That means you cannot compromise, you should not compromise on the liquidity or capital adequacy or other prudent banking system. You should not be compromising. You should not be compromising on the prudent banking prudence. So that's what Global Alliance says. And yes, you should reach out to the community. You should reach out to the individuals. So that you should consider their growth. And then if, as I said, from the beginning, in the beginning, I said the person who borrowed 300,000 rupees from the banking system, they have grown to the extent that they can, they can borrow more than 1 billion rupees of. They have, grown that way. Then that is where the future is. That way, I think we should continue to focus on productive. In our country, we call it productive sector. In Nepal, we call it productive sector, and we have a directed lending requirement from the central bank to invest in productive sector, which includes agriculture, hydropower, and renewable energy, and other small micro enterprises. Those, we should actually, the bank should be focusing on these kind of sectors and not get into the greed and finance in the speculative businesses. And bottom line is you should get into you should be supporting sustainable businesses, and that's where the future lies of the country and globally.
Wonderful. Upendra, thank you so much. I think you've built up a beautiful case for us to understand what leadership in banking really needs to be a stand for inside you, as well as leadership within the sector for society overall. And if Global Alliance for Banking and Values can help support that, fantastic. Thank you for this interview and for your sharing with us. I know Andy is waiting to give us a nice wrap-up close. I have so appreciated it, getting to know you and how you have navigated this very important part of your own sense of integrity within the sector and overall in your life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Debbie, thank you very much indeed for managing the conversation with Upendra so nicely and so well. And what a great conversation it was. Upendra, you have so much to offer us in terms of your ideas and the way you bring the idea of values in the banking sector to life by telling us about your stories and your experiences. They really are very illuminating indeed, not just in terms of how you see the need for greater reform in the banking sector itself, but also in the way that you've been living your life and the way that you've been able to impact the people immediately around you. Of course, you'll be aware that the Global Alliance on Banking Values has come up many times in our conversations in such a positive way, and I can certainly see how you identify with it so well and how it identifies with you so well. And it really is refreshing to know that it is possible to have people and banks in that sector who truly do want to serve society the way that the Transparency Task Force believes it needs to be. So it's been a wonderful conversation, Upendra. Thank you so much for taking time to share with us your thoughts and your views. Any final comments from you, Upendra, before we bring matters to a close? Anything else that you'd like to say?
Okay, basically, I just said, there is an opportunity. I want to repeat that the future of financial sector should not be so much about money anymore. It should be about the impact it makes to an individual, society, community, economy, and environment. And at this point in time, we have an opportunity. The sectors of the economy and people dependent on banks to manage their issues are disrupted by, at the moment, disrupted by COVID-19. It is a real opportunity to enhance the banking system's reputation and build its trust, becoming a critical pillar, supporting customers, economies, and communities through these challenging times. It's really an opportunity for us. And I think at the same time, we should be disseminating information to the public on the exemplary stories of positive impact that the banks have made in the economy. That will definitely make a greater difference. Largely, the banking system in Nepal are very well regulated, but still trust, we lack trust, and we need to really build trust in it. And for me, it's been a wonderful journey for a person like me who come from a mediocre kind of background. I've really enjoyed my journey in the financial sector, and I have really enjoyed working and with the achievement I could make during the period. It's been really sort of wonderful. I really feel wonderful to have solved banking system, a doctor of financial sector.
That's it.
Wonderful. Upendra and Debbie, thank you so much. The idea of helping the finance sector and the banking sector to be healthy and full of good life is a very positive ambition and aspiration. And clearly, Upendra, you're doing your bit to make that happen and make that a reality. Upendra, thank you very much indeed for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
good.
you, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie, as well. Thank you.